Ladies and gentlemen of the Action Army, what is going on, and welcome to another episode of Answers for Athletes. In today's video, we got a question from Matiha Dragutinovic 993, who says, what books would you recommend for patellar and quadriceps tendinopathy? Well, I have a decent answer for you today. Normally, I say I have a great answer for you, but I have a decent answer today. I am going to point you in the right direction. But before I do that, make sure that you comment JUMP, J-U-M-P, down below in the comment section if you want a free bodyweight vertical jump training program. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and then leave your question down below if you want me to answer your question in a video just like this. So, as you see behind me, I have a bookshelf behind me with a ton of books. I have a ton more books over here. I really do enjoy reading. If someone took a whole bunch of time to research, or they took their life's work, and you have someone who has gained mastery in a certain skill or topic or craft over here, and they put everything that they know into a book. I don't read just to read. I read to learn. So I like nonfiction books. Self-help books are probably the category that I have read the most of, although I don't really read self-help books anymore because they all just say the same shit over and over. And at this point, I don't need motivation. I don't need the self-help stuff. At this point, I am well on my way of developing mastery in one specific craft, which is sport performance. So now I am more towards, I read a lot of books on basketball now that I'm a basketball coach, and there's one school that just keeps kicking the shit out of us. They've won the last 5 years in a row, and I won a championship. So I read a lot about basketball. I read a ton about training, but I have only ever read one book on tendinopathy. I've listened to a million podcasts and podcast episodes and watched a million videos on tendinopathy, but I have only ever read one book. So this is by far the best book that I've ever read on tendinopathy. It is the only book that I have ever read, but this book, when I first got into, training and having tendinopathy myself, this book changed my life. It is called Beating Patellar Tendonitis by Martin Coben, the proven treatment formula to fix hidden causes of jumper's knee and stay pain-free for life. So if I were you, I would start with this book. I would start with Beating Patellar Tendonitis by Martin Coben. And then after I read this book, I would get into a lot of Jake Tura's stuff. Jake Tura is being in the world of vertical jump training, in basketball, there's a ton of knee pain that happens. There's a ton of jumper's knee and tendinopathy that happens. And Jake Tura is in that world too. He plays basketball all the time. Him and I had a dunk session together a couple years ago now at this point. He actually jumped higher than me, and he was heavier than me, so that was quite impressive. But he's in the world of basketball and vertical jump training, and he's one of the best when it comes to tendinopathy. So I would look at all of the stuff that Jake Tura is putting out. Then, if you want to get even deeper down the rabbit hole, tendinopathy isn't very interesting to me, which is why I've only read one book on it. At this point, I know how to fix my knee pain. I know how to fix everybody else's knee pain. I've made a ton of videos on how to fix knee pain. But start with Beating Patellar Tendonitis by Martin Coben, and then go to Jake Tura's stuff. And then after that, listen to every single podcast that you possibly can with Keith Barr and Jill Cook. And then after that, if you still want to learn about it, man, I think there's a book. It's called Tendinopathy. There's literally a textbook that I'm sure you have to read, or that they refer to for physical therapists and other, if you're going to specialize in that route, that I'm sure that they read the book Tendinopathy. But when I looked at it and I went to get it, it just looked massively boring. So I'm not going to read an entire college textbook on just tendinopathy. And that's just me, just because I just don't care. I know how to fix it. If anything, comes out, I'll hear it from Joe Cook or Keith Barr or Jake Tura or PGF Performance or somebody in this world. I will listen to it, but I'm not about to read a whole textbook on tendinopathy. However, you might want to, which is why you might have asked this question. So very quickly, those are the books that I think that's the route that I would take if I were you. And like I said, this is a decent answer. I don't think this is an extraordinarily good answer. But I think if you ask the same question to Jake Tura, he's much more passionate about tendinopathy. If you ask that same question to him, I think he could, and he probably would respond to you on Instagram. He could give you a ton of books, but I can't remember if I told you that I was going to give you the formula to fix knee pain. So I'll just say it very quickly. You got to start with isometrics, which this book is lacking. That's what I wanted to say. This book does not have anything about isometrics, maybe a small section. But that is why you start with this one. Then you move towards Keith Barr, Jake Tura, Keith Barr, and Jill Cook, because they have a ton of research and studies and evidence, and they have all the information on isometrics and fixing or healing the tendon and tendinopathy in general. But this book is actually missing that. But start with this one. Anyways, what you do is you reduce load if you can. Then step number 1, you do iso. Step number 2, you do slow strength. Step number 3, energy storage. Step number 4, energy storage and release. You start with the lowest level. Don't go above 3 out of 10 pain. And then you just slowly increase all those 4. Hopefully this was helpful, but I don't want to keep going because this is probably going to be a video that is not viewed by many people at all. But if you watched up until this point, you're a real one and you really care about tendinopathy. But follow that path. Anyways, like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment jump for a free bodyweight vertical jump training program, and comment your question down below if you want me to answer your question in a video just like this. But I'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.